Hi everyone, thank you for tuning into episode 17 on the Lipstick Leadership Legacy podcast with your co-host JaneTaff, the Sage, and Deanna Vestal, your career catalyst. We're jumping in right in the middle of a conversation between Jane and Deanna, talking about the importance of self-discovery, assessments, and their personal meaning on the words lipstick, leadership, and legacy. Let's tune in. Everything that I can be about has to start with me. And that has nothing to do with ego. That has to do with, first, if I understand me, I have more to give you, because now I am not going to interrupt the process with needing something I didn't know I needed. You know, when you understand yourself, you know what you need. You told yourself the truth about that. Like, I know I need love, affection, and affirmation from people. Now, do I require it from people? No, I create relationships where I get that naturally because I know me now. I don't force it from people. I know how to create the proper environment in order to get what I know I need. But first I give. First I discovered, and then I give so I can receive, right? But that had to start with me. So again, it's a knowing and balancing that being and doing, because I couldn't do without my being, right?
It's a beautiful sentiment, because it implies that it started long ago, and you're still fine-tuning and applying it and reassessing today.
Yeah.
It's a relationship with yourself that starts it has to start somewhere. It starts in the assessment.
Yeah.
In real life,
and the awareness.
To bring awareness. Mm-hmm. Then the relationship begins, and it gets deeper and deeper, and sometimes it is messy. But always the feeling or the identity of, wow, this was worth it, or, where even the challenges are somehow have more value.
Yes.
And that is where life is, if you will, like where we get to get out of our heads about why me, and really apply the introspection and the pain to being part of the life experience. And there's no way to explain that. I mean, maybe there is. The thing is, though, it's the experience that really makes it applicable or makes it meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly. I want to ask you about first and foremost, we talked about how self-discovery, it all starts there. Both of us have practices that start with self-discovery in an assessment. And then where I want to say is, how could, in your case, the DISC assessment, and in my case, the MBTI and temperament, how does that, do you feel, relate to like the lipstick out of Lipstick Leadership Legacy?
Whenever I think of lipstick, I think feminine. And currently, my thought process around the feminine is, what is the feminine, right? And when you think of feminine, we can go to energy or expression. When we talk about personality assessments or temperament assessments, those are all expressions, aren't they?
Yes.
And for us, we have to understand, how are we expressing? You can only express if you have something inside. If you don't know what's inside, your expression is messy, convoluted, can easily be misconstrued.
Not saying what you mean.
Yeah. There's so many ways that your expression becomes messy, not clarifying, right? Both to yourself and worse, to other people. So when I think of lipstick, I really think women need to understand their expression. and where that comes from. And how can we excavate in the lightest way, right? Not trauma, right? Because that's a different kind of exploration. But who am I? Who am I under all this trauma, culture, nurture, right? What's my nature? The essence of the expression. What's in here that's maybe dying to come out because it's been unacknowledged, right? When I first started doing personality, temperament assessments, all those things, all of them, when I was younger, and it delighted me to no end, said, hey, at the very basic core of me, I'm an extrovert. What does that mean? That means I get my energy from interacting with people. And the more I do it, the more energized I become, right? Because for introverts, it's the opposite. It's where the energy comes from, right? I have two very introverted children. They always tell me, I'm tired. When we've been hanging out with the family and playing games and all this stuff, oh, mommy's just catching her second wind, but I've got two children who are bowing out like, I'm done. I'm going to go to my room or go home because I'm kind of peopled out. I love you, but I'm peopled out. And, because they get their energy by retreating from people and having their own thoughts and that welling up from within. There is no right or wrong in this expression. It is an understanding, right? I express myself outwardly. That's why most extroverts have the gift of words. Why? Because it's an outward expression of our thoughts so that it'll hit another person outside of us. Most introverts are amazing thinkers because that wisdom comes welling up inside them, and they think those thoughts long enough so that they can refine them. And that I don't have. I practiced and endeavored to have that, the silence and contemplation, which I think is good for extroverts too, don't get me wrong. But I know my expression, my gifted expression, is outside of me. To express it outside is to actually crystallize the thought for me and helpful. But knowing that label, even though nobody likes to be labeled, we all want to know about ourselves, and we can only do that through labels because we're limited. It was freeing. I have another girlfriend who found out, even though she was required to be extroverted, she is an introvert by the assessment. And that gave her so much freedom because now she can say, hey, you guys, I'm going to go away and think about that. And we know that she's literally doing that, and she's recharging and re-engaging with thoughts and information she had received, and she'll come back to us. No shame. Where we get it wrong is we want to make someone not like me, like me. And this is where I think personality assessments, temperament assessments threaten to divide people, because really it's information. It's an informational tool to help you dive deeper, not to divide, especially in the workplace. It's to help you inform what other mix of team members do you need to have harmony and balance, not all the same type. In our lives, do you want to marry the same person who's exactly like you? I, for one, find that my life partner is a polar opposite to me. And while that used to threaten my ego because everything was contrary to what I was thinking, has become a source of unending entertainment. As somebody, as somebody who loves to wonder why somebody said what they said, thought what they thought, came to the conclusion that they came to, it's entertainment for me, because now I don't need to always think the same thoughts, kind of like an echo chamber. Echo chambers are a bad thing, singular thoughts rolling back and forth and over again. I need
Well, it's interesting what you're saying because now that's bringing us into leadership. Like, not everyone wants to be a leader, but as a woman who is raising children with a man, there is leadership just in that. And that's really what you brought up.
yeah,
And the assessments or understanding using a core assessment tool like DISC or MBTI in this case, but there are others, and we talk
so
about
many.
those too. So many, and I like them all.
Me
Okay,
too.
me
Kind of
too.
an assessment addict. Yes.
Me too. I'm kind of an assessment addict, and in that regard, we start to learn more about other people, or more about how it does depend, like who is the deliverer of a message matters. It's not as personal. It becomes more about them than us because we understand
Yeah.
the value of different types
Yeah.
of personalities and also influences, which is very free for me, for someone like me who I absolutely come from an influencing family where everything has to be, we all have to agree.
Yeah.
And then I became that kind of leader, an influential leader. I can sell ice to an Eskimo, they used to say, you know? And I took pride in that. Well, guess what? In self discovery, I actually felt quite shamed. And then I'm like, wait, shame is not the kind of feeling I should have. Oh, no, you should never should on yourself.
Yeah.
It's getting worse.
Yeah.
And the value of going back into, well, how does my personality lend to that? Oh, that's an influence from the beliefs and values of someone outside of you.
Right.
So go ahead and understand them a little bit more using this same tool, as well as learn how to articulate why you're different and that's okay using this same tool. The results of an assessment really do, for me, provide more confidence in leadership styles and
Yeah.
allow me to be more fluid in leadership because it does depend on who you're leading.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yes, I
Yeah.
didn't know I was a community leader. I really felt like I was a community activist. Why? Because in volunteer work, you don't, well, in my volunteer work, I usually followed someone else's lead.
Mm.
But at work, I always had people that were following my lead.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how through the course of self-discovery, especially if you end up allowing yourself to be led by an executive coach or
Mhm.
someone, while you're also learning about yourself, then having another expert help you explore who you are, it becomes much easier to swallow that leadership is not a title someone else gave me. I
Right.
lead me,
Yeah.
and I lead the family with the assistance of the other members of the tribe. And I don't have to buy into their values, even though we're all from the same place.
Mm.
We can develop our own relationships in leadership. And so that you really brought that up for me in talking about you and your husband.
Yeah.
So it's lipstick, leadership, legacy. How does self-discovery impact legacy from your perspective?
It's I started thinking about legacy a long time ago. And in our context, we think about our leave behind, our stamp on the world that's uniquely Jane or Deanna. And really, it's how do I so love people? How do I um, so impress upon in relationship with people that which is uniquely me,
Mm.
right? And I don't, and sometimes people take legacy to be this big, huge thing. Like it has to be a monument to your, ideology or your work, your life's work. Does it have to be that big? No. When I first started rolling around the concept of legacy, I thought, What do I want to put inside my kids that the world cannot take away? What could I put in them that is so important to me that this world, no matter how hard and cruel it can be, will not take it away? And I endeavored for that to be love. Love yourself. I love you. And it's kind of a fallible, messy love. But I hope in that messiness that you see the intention behind it, that I will love you messy because love is so important, right? Because loving yourself is important. Being loved is important. And I didn't have those things. I didn't feel those things in my own upbringing. So that became a very important legacy for me. Now, thinking about legacy a different way, I think I told you about this a long time ago, Deanna, that in 8th grade, we had this tombstone project where we had to pick what was going to be put on our tombstone. And it was meant to focus us on how are we going to have the rest of our lives be so that this was what was put on our tombstone. So in 8th grade, I had a very insightful teacher. She was very cool, Miss Puzina. And it was such a great, I thought about this and only words came to me, like descriptive words. And there are really roles in my life that when I die, this is what I want to be remembered by. Wife, mother, friend. That was it.
Oh my gosh.
And those are all uniquely me because I'm relational, right? So wife, mother, friend, you have to be in a relationship to have all those three. You are in a leadership role, which is coincidental because I didn't think I was going to be a leader in this world. But wife, mother, friend, you tend to lead and you tend to follow, right? You lead your kids until you have to follow them, right? You and I are at that stage where, yay, they get to lead and we get to follow and learn new things. But that is a very focusing exercise. What do you want? Like your leave behind, your legacy is such that they can't help but do these few words, right? Because it's a limited space. These few words have to be on there. Do I want any of my achievements on there? Heck no. I don't care for those. Those are fleeting. But my relationships, that to me is eternal. That's actually the only thing I can take to heaven too. So, those qualities really got me thinking. And I didn't know anything about being a Christian in 8th grade. Anybody who knew me back then, by the way, the people who are watching this later, I don't want you to chime in and go, heck yeah, she was like not a Christian. But
Jane, let me share a story.
Yeah,
I knew
let me
Jane way
say,
back when.
yeah, no, you don't have permission to do that. But it's true. I had none of that in mind. But me being younger, me still being me today, there are no truer words that I could pick out of the universe of words that I know that would more accurately and I would more passionately be about than those 3 words. Honestly.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And to know you brings more meaning to that wife, friend, mother. Yeah. And I really enjoy how you allow the titles to be strong enough without adjectives. That's just right up my alley. Well said.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? What do you think when you think of legacy? I know we talk about that a lot.
Yes. Legacy. So for me, really breaking generational curses comes to mind, and my life being able to embrace beyond the responsibility of living and beyond the construct of influence, being able to embrace who I am and stand for it embodies the whole ball of wax to me, and I have seen how generational curses have been broken from the previous to mine, and from mine to my daughter, and to my nieces and nephews, and my great nieces and nephews. And so that's something that means a lot to me. And as it relates to Lipstick Leadership Legacy, this is a unique time where those of us who are thought leaders, we are having new thoughts to us, and we want to share ideas and experiences where it's like a call to action. We're coagulating, we're responding, we're finding ourselves in the same place at the same time. And then how does that, in my opinion, in my desire for legacy, that creates a new normal, an opportunity for different to also be home, for it to feel safe, to be different.
Yeah.
And the legacy there, it would almost be hard to see where the line stopped and something new began, because it changed, because the reality changed of those people who are in our circle and who we find ourselves, how we find ourselves relating to each other going forward.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And the interesting thing about legacy, just as you were talking, I was thinking what's essential in my mind for legacy to take hold is an understanding of why the legacy had to change. You know, what was the pain? That's why I tell my kids, that's why I tell my kids, I didn't feel loved. I know grandma and my dad loved me. I know that now, but I didn't when I was younger. And so this is why the legacy of loving yourself is so important. Being open to accepting other people's true love of you.
Wow.
They need to know why, or they're not going to have the respect to hold your legacy, right? They don't have the context to hold that legacy in a place, in a space of reverence, of awe, of, oh, yes, we can't break that, if they have no understanding, right? So, that's something I always think of too when we think of legacy. We need to know why the legacy was created to begin with, lest we forget and do that thing that created the need for it.
I really appreciate that. I think that's worth exploring more, because we are inspired to do things differently out of pain. And
many times
many times. And there is a very relevant statement around history is doomed to repeat itself. And then my dad used to always say, unless, of course, we are willing to examine ourselves.
Yeah.
I did not know that meant self-discovery at the time, but it is.
You got that right.
Right. I thought it meant as a society. I really, still do, but it has such more meaning, so much more meaning now regarding lipstick leadership and legacy as separate words and values.
Yeah.
In addition, right? In addition to the pain, which I would love to talk a little bit more about how to be appropriate in our exploration of pain, because I am seeing in today's unique time that pain has caused fear, and fear has caused hatred, and hatred has caused division, and division has caused like gun-toting.
Violence.
Violence.
Yeah.
And so and at the same time, it is appropriate to explore the pain. And it is much safer to do with the tools of self-discovery, with the benefit of friends who have established a communication system that is safe.
Yeah.
And then there is this other part of legacy that embraces what made the whole ball of wax worth it, right? My sister recently came up with this philosophical question: life is fill in the blank.
Mm.
And we've been playing with it. All kinds of words come up all the time. We've been laughing in the middle of a conversation about it. And my favorite one still, though, from then till now, is life is art. It can be dark. It can be abstract. It can be gorgeous. It can be very, structured. It can be all the things, colorful. Life is art. That is the thought process and a structure for thinking around what love is and what self-care truly is.
Yeah.
That is all of it. Everything we've been talking about today is legacy building,
right,
as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And it all starts with these silly little things called assessments. Silly but profound,
Silly
simple
but
things,
profound.
absolutely profound. That's what I've learned. This is why we can learn lessons from a baby. In their silly, it could be profound. When was the last time I giggled like that? I watched a video the other day. Actually, it was two babies who were a pair from triplets, and the mom caught them on their baby cam cracking each other up in the middle of the night, just two of them. And I was thinking to myself as I watched this, when was the last time I giggled with a girlfriend like that? Just laughed and looked at each other and laughed some more. And I was like, that's a lesson, to delight. Do we have that level of raw delight, in our lives, or are we just so heavy where delight is gone? I don't want to live in a world where delight's gone, and again, simple, right? Laughter from a baby taught me to question, is my delight gone or waning? Do I engage in that as a practice, or do I look for it, kind of eagerly anticipate it? Look, I'm silly as all get out, so I actually look for that kind of mess, but and I want to engage with it fully whenever it happens. But what if I was in a mode where things were heavy in my life, and that was a serious wake-up call to say, girl, you need to laugh some more, if for no other reason to release those endorphins, to bring on the literal happy hormones, because that changes your mind, right? That helps your mind, that helps your physiology, your healing, everything, right? If life was heavy, can you just be in delightful laughter with somebody?
Yes.
And again, simple but profound. And I think as we continue to have this conversation, because this was juicy, I hope the people who hear this really understand we didn't just create this forum for ourselves. We believe we're like everyone else. We're not supernatural. We're not all-knowing. We don't have special information given only to us. But what we do know is we have voices, we have influence, we have thoughts a little bit ahead of that journey from others that have value. And so, for me, I love that we've been having this conversation that's 2 and 10 lessons deep. For an average person thinking it's an average day. But I do encourage everyone to think, what else? What could I be discovering, right, of myself? Just one simple thing that could potentially be a simple thing, but a profound thing.
Wow.
Right? Because that
Absolutely.
is our hope, right, Deanna? I mean, this is why we started this whole journey, so that not only could we grow, in the back and forth because we're different and amazing. Um, but so that we can share that discovery and growth with other people and encourage them to engage, to encourage them.
Yes. Yes. And in a sense, it was part of our own discovery from where you are. You had mentioned earlier today that you start in self-discovery way up here,
Yeah.
and the spectrum is broad. At a broad level, at a high level, I am this, that. Oh, I'm influenced by this, I engage with that. And then as the years continue on, and as the engagement with other thought leaders gets deeper, the focus about who we are becomes more narrow. I know who I am, and I learned this new thing about me or
Mhm.
someone else that actually really inspired the life experience, or whatever that is. Uh, and that's where we that's where we were when we came to this. Like, okay, yes, we have this voice, and I wonder what else is left on the trajectory of our careers or on the trajectory of life satisfaction.
Yeah.
And so here we are, go messy early or go ugly early.
Yeah.
And as we are now clarifying that gift, it's a trip because there is a bit of business in the game. We're consumers as well as providers.
Yeah.
And while that is true, and we're discerning too, we talk about
Mhm.
before we buy, we
Yeah.
really do the discovery in
Right.
a purchase. And we are not, quote, selling anything. We're not utilizing our community to sell something,
Yeah.
although we have these pivotal products, this self-assessment tool
Yeah.
that assists people in self-leadership, self-guidance, but also requires guidance in order to be optimal, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, I took my first DISC assessment when I was 21 years old. I do not want someone to go on a, 27-year hike through the desert to get to where we are, right? We want to give somebody some guidance. I never got guidance about what I discovered at 21. I got oh, that's interesting. And then they moved on, and I never, I was compelled. I was curious and pushed myself to look more, to look deeper, to ask questions. I didn't even know what questions to ask, but I asked them anyway. And continue in this work and continue to gobble up other assessments and continue to read books on personalities. And there's not a lot about it out there. There's more articles and things like that, but we want to shortcut that for some people because we don't have no 27 years to waste at this stage, because we're at a critical stage in our existence where people as individuals are in dire need to know themselves because their lives are messy. Like, it's getting messier and they don't know how to clean it up. And if we can encourage more people to engage in this work that pays you, I mean, your weight in gold, in relationships, in healing, in harmony, in all kinds of peace. I don't know what people would pay for peace in themselves. But that is the interesting part of learning about yourself through these tools, is it gives you a profound sense of your worth and your worthiness, right? And your contribution and your value. When I look at assessments, I never looked at it as what I was good at and what I was bad at, because some assessments break it down that way. I always looked at it as strengths and challenges, right? Because it's true. Until, we all have strengths, natural or fostered or, learned. And then we have challenges, things that we we don't feel we're good at, we haven't learned yet, we, struggle with because it's not our A prime natural. And that's okay. It's okay for me to say, you know what? I'm not great at math, and if you explain it to me slowly enough, I'll get it, right? I won't be left behind, but I'm not quick at it, so you will have to slow it down for me. I'm not offended by having to ask for that now because I have so many other strengths that have nothing to do with my weakness in math, that I can celebrate, I can honor, I can gift to other people because I have it in abundance, right? So that saying that challenge doesn't break me down. But if I had no awareness of all those strengths and all those gifts and all that abundance, this little thing called a challenge could break me down and make me feel weak.
Amen.
Because I don't know that. Who cares? And this is what we hope. I know my heart in this work is to give someone that perspective, right? To give them that comfort that no, it's just strengths and things either you don't know yet or things you don't care to know. Who cares? If it's a serious challenge for you, you probably don't ever want to learn how to do that well anyway.
It's so interesting because there are so many different ways to look at it.
Yeah.
I agree with every single thing that you're saying. And for me, self-discovery and being guided through self-discovery, it has improved my cognitive ability. Yeah. For me, buying into the assessment report and then actually working with someone to have it evaluated, it gives me insight so that I can be the person who knows it all. I really know nothing. The more I learn, the less I know. And yet, the more I grow, the more confidence I have that I can have information downloaded to me, that I also can sit comfortably with what I'm uncomfortable with.
Right.
And that has to do with being guided through basic questions. Yeah. I only have a certain finite box of questions that I've been using to approach every single situation in life. Yeah. And with number one, an assessment and the report, I can straight up read, oh, that's why, and this and that, and totally change my mind about how I was approaching something. But with assistance, with someone to actually tell me, ask me better questions and have me analyze my stuff, it just brings more confidence in me being able to answer answer life's challenges with more expertise or with the more something that will be more effective in tapping into a solution. I'm solutions driven, and is that, and it's nice. It's really powerful. It's worth the investment for me.
I love that word effective, more effective, because look, we could just be how we be. And how's that working for you?
How's that working for you?
Right. And if the answer is anything but great, then you have room for improvement like we all do.
Yes.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah.
And at some point I really felt concerned, like, about telling my clients that I also pay for the same skill set that they're paying me for. And yet, here's the thing, in real life, how can you hear without a teacher? How can you teach without a teacher? Or how can you lead without a leader? Oh my goodness. Hello.
Yeah, and also, how can you be sold out if you're not engaging in the work? Like, can you imagine going to we'll have to save this part of the discussion. Right. We'll have to do this next time.
Talk about the dichotomy and the absurdity of what our expectation is experience all about satisfaction? Do we all desire to be better? Is anyone out there an oncologist, a scientist of their thoughts, where they really are okay with just being? Or are we all in the process of doing, et cetera, as we continue to explore in the Lipstick Leadership Legacy campaign?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to those conversations too. We had an awesome conversation today, and I really, I love the new vibe of our conversations because it's a lot more natural and it's a lot more sis. Let's just get it. Yeah, so